Okay, hello everyone. My name is Shreya Wunnava, and I am from Mountain House High School located in California. So today I'll be presenting on the gut-brain connection, how gut microbiota and diet influence major depressive disorder, which is a literature review I worked on with my mentor, Aya Calabero. Um, so I kind of chose this topic because I've recently had issues with my gut health. I have this ongoing gastritis issue and thought it would be interesting to research on the further impacts of that. This literature review explores the communication between our digestive system and our brain and how something as simple as what we eat can shape our mental health. So depression is often thought of as this purely neurological or psychological condition, but growing evidence is now showing that the gut plays a very powerful role as well. So I'll be guiding you through the background on the gut-brain axis, how diet shapes our microbiota, and how these changes connect to major depressive disorder or MDD. So, approximately 8% of Americans are diagnosed with major depressive disorder every single year. So, that's around millions of lives who are disrupted by symptoms such as sadness, hopelessness, memory problems, and difficulty regulating emotions. So, traditionally, we've kind of looked at neurotransmitters like serotonin or treatments like SSRIs as the main way to address depression, but that does not explain why so many people don't fully respond to medication. So the key question is why? What else could be influencing depression beyond the brain itself? And that's where the gut comes in. So the gut and the brain communicate bidirectionally through multiple channels, which is often referred to as the gut-brain microbiota axis or GBM axis, which connects the gastrointestinal and nervous systems. So there are three main communication methods. So neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA, which are actually often thought of as brain chemicals, are actually produced in large amounts in the gut. And then we have cytokines, which are immune system messengers that can influence inflammation and brain function. And then lastly, we have microbial metabolites, especially short chain fatty acids or SCFAs, is something I really looked at in my paper, which gut bacteria produce when they break down dietary fiber. So as shown in this image, when the gut is in balance, it's what we call eubiosis, and it creates a strong intestinal barrier and supports a stable mood. But when the gut is imbalanced or in dysbiosis, the barrier weakens, which is seen as leaky gut here. And this allows toxins to leak into the bloodstream, kind of fueling inflammation and triggering depressive symptoms. So the gut is not just digesting food, it's actually actively shaping our gut health or our brain health. So in a healthy microbiome, most bacteria belong to the phyla or family of bacteria of firmicutes and bacteroidetes. So firmicutes are shown in this image above, which together make up around 70% of our gut bacteria. So these gut bacteria help maintain gut lining integrity, produce beneficial metabolites, and support our brain health. So this kind of shows that 70% of our gut is good bacteria. So most of our gut is good bacteria. But however, in an unhealthy microbiome, there is often an overgrowth of phyla proteobacteria, which is shown below, and fusobacteria. So these two are linked to inflammation and the release of toxins like lipopolysaccharides or LPS. So when LPS leaks into your bloodstream, it causes neuroinflammation, oxidative stress, and ultimately worsens mood regulation. So this imbalance, either too little diversity or too much harmful bacteria, is a real hallmark of dysbiosis and has been directly linked to depression. So our diet is one of the most important factors influencing which bacteria thrive in our gut. So the Mediterranean diet shown below is rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, olive oil, fish, and provides lots of fiber and omega-3 fatty acids. So this fiber allows beneficial bacteria to ferment and produce SCFAs, short chain fatty acids, while omega-3s have anti-inflammatory effects. So together, the Mediterranean diet supports both firmicutes and bacteroidetes, which are the good bacteria. And by contrast, the Western diet, shown above, is high in processed foods, red meat, sugar, salt, unhealthy fats. And this diet promotes the growth of proteobacteria and the release of LPS, or lipopolysaccharides, triggering inflammation and contributing to dysbiosis. So essentially, what we eat directly determines whether our microbiome wants to protect us or harm us. So now let's connect the microbiome more specifically to major depressive disorder. So dysbiosis weakens the gut barrier, allowing toxins and cytokines to enter and leak into circulation. And then once these cytokines reach the brain, they can cross the blood-brain barrier, which sparks neuroinflammation and damages regions such as the hippocampus, which is very critical for memory and emotional regulation. And hippocampal shrinkage means, like, yes, the hippocampus is physically shrinking, is often observed in patients with depression. So this inflammation also disrupts serotonin production. So normally tryptophan, which is an amino acid from our diet, is converted into serotonin, and that's the regular pathway. But in states of inflammation, this tryptophan gets kind of shunted into this kynurenine pathway, which produces toxic metabolites such as quinolic acid. So these metabolites kind of overstimulate neurons in our brain, which is a process known as excitotoxicity, and worsens depressive symptoms. So another key pathway is the HPA axis, or the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, which is our body's central stress response system. So when cytokines are elevated, they activate this HPA axis, and this increases both cortisol and corticotrophin releasing hormone, or CRH, both of those levels. So short-term cortisol helps us to respond to stress normally, but during chronic inflammation, the system becomes overactive. And too much cortisol can damage the hippocampus, as we talked about in the last slide, and impairs memory, cognition, and reinforces depressive symptoms. So over time, the brain starts to develop this resistance to cortisol when there's hypersecretion, and disrupts the body's normal feedback loop of cortisol. So this combination of inflammation, overactive stress response, and neurotransmitter disruption helps us explain why depression can be so persistent and so difficult to treat. So this kind of brings us to treatment-resistant depression, or TRD. So up to 1/3 of people with major depressive disorder actually don't respond well to antidepressants at all. And dysbiosis is one of the reasons why. So when the gut barrier is compromised, toxins and cytokines interfere with serotonin pathways, and SSRIs, which are the treatments for depression, work by increasing serotonin availability. But if inflammation keeps diverting tryptophan away from serotonin, which is shown in this image, the medication just loses effectiveness as a whole. So research is showing that chronic inflammation and HPA axis dysfunction both contribute to TRD. And this highlights why looking beyond the brain and addressing gut health could be essential for better treatment outcomes for depression. So to summarize everything, the gut microbiota is a very, very powerful regulator of our mental health. And our diet is also one of the most important factors shaping our microbiota composition and gut health. And dysbiosis, or an unhealthy gut, fuels a big cascade of inflammation, disrupting serotonin and activating the HPA axis, all of which contribute to depressive symptoms. So future treatments may need to combine traditional antidepressants with interventions targeting the gut, such as increasing probiotics, prebiotics, or just dietary changes as a whole. So ultimately, something as everyday as our food choices can have measurable impacts on our mood. So by protecting our gut health, we may also be protecting our mental health directly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shreya. That was a really insightful presentation. I know when we were speaking earlier in our practice, I mentioned this is something that I've been seeing a lot of conversation happening about in the research space, but also in, I think, in general population as well. I'm sure all of you today, if you're interested in nutrition, biology, physiology, you've probably seen a lot of companies that are pushing greens powders or probiotics, prebiotics as kind of like the one-stop shop fix for gut health issues. From your presentation, it sounds like really to help address these issues, you need more of a holistic approach. What would be a recommendation that you would make to someone aside from changing their diet of adding in any particular supplements to assist in some of these inflammation issues?
Well, in my paper, I did have a case study on a 25-year-old woman who had irritable bowel syndrome, who was taking fiber supplements to help. So fiber supplements can be a really, really, really big thing, since fiber is such a main part of this whole eubiosis versus dysbiosis process. Having an increase in fiber in your diet can literally make the difference between you having chronic inflammation or just having a regular healthy gut. So fiber supplements probably is a really big, big thing.
Were there any results that really surprised you as you dug into this topic?
Mainly just the fact that something as simple as your diet can start either such a big inflammation cascade in your body or calm your body down. I feel like we see what we eat as just a simple thing. It's, snacking, what we eat, meals, but those small things can really, really impact our mental health in ways we've never even thought about before, which I think is really crazy. Yeah.
And has that changed the way that you decide how to eat in your day-to-day life or inform others close to you as well?
Yeah, I feel like at least with the Western diet, we have more fast food. We have more availability to fast food and things like that. I feel like having more home cooked food, and just having more greens, more fiber, more omega-3s, and good parts of your diet will make a really, really, really big change. Yeah.
Something I found particularly interesting about your presentation is the cyclical nature of this connection. Maybe you have generational depression and runs in your family, and you're kind of predisposed to also having gut issues and inflammation. I think that opens up a lot of different further research questions for you to explore as well. Is this something that you're thinking about continuing on?
Yeah, for sure. It's the bidirectional communication means, one part is wrong means can totally impact the other, and it's really interesting. Yeah.
We've got a question. Cyrus, go ahead. You can unmute yourself and turn your camera on if you have a question for Shreya.
All right, I definitely do agree that diet majorly impacts a lot of components of life that we don't really think about. I I actually consume do you know what kefir is?
I don't. I don't.
Uh I saw it on your slide, but I was wondering if you thought that was beneficial, and I was also wondering what your thoughts on raw dairy were, and how that affects the gut.
Oh, I say it as kefir. Yeah, I did look into that. I feel like raw dairy is something that is part of the Mediterranean diet. I looked at more of fiber, but I feel like the increase of probiotics and prebiotics in kefir is very, very impactful. Probiotics meaning the good bacteria, so healthy bacteria, Firmicutes and bacteroidetes, have a direct impact. So yeah, very, very big impact as much as fiber. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Shreya, how might someone know that they are dealing with gut inflammation? What are symptoms that you came across that for people who were struggling with this to be identifiable?
I mean, general discomfort, especially with the case study that I looked at, irritable bowel syndrome is a really, really common way to target and kind of see like, oh, I have gut issues. I have dysbiosis and I need to change something. But yeah, general discomfort in the stomach. You could even say brain fog is a really big one that connects gut health to mental health or brain health in general. But yeah, gastritis, irritable bowel syndrome, and all are very common diagnosis to kind of go over dysbiosis. Yeah.
Any other questions from our group of panelists as well? Looks like we've got one here. Someone else has said, I was also interested in the power of prebiotics or probiotics in the management of MDD. Right, we had someone else who was interested in this as well. Any other questions for Shreya? All right, well, Shreya, thank you so much for presenting today.